All right, it says we're live. I'm just going to double check to make sure that things are up before we go ahead and get started here. And it looks like we are, in fact, live. So, good evening, everybody, and welcome to our March Movie Club. I can't believe that it's already March, and I also can't believe that it's only March at the same time. I was weirdly surprised when I saw that listed there. Um, a few things before we get started. I do want to go through a couple of our housekeeping rules that we go through every time we do one of these clubs. So, this is one of 3 multimedia clubs. We have this, our movie club, as well as a monthly listening club. And we also have a quarterly book club. And for our book club, we will be meeting at the end of next month, at the end of April. For the movie club, you're at it now. And our listening club will be happening this coming Thursday at 7 p.m. So you can absolutely join us to discuss Adore by the Smashing Pumpkins. If you are joining us live, you can comment on any of these videos and we can actually see those comments. And that's how you can participate in these discussions. We only allow a few people onto the discussion panels, but you can still participate live that way. And if you're watching it on the replay, we get notifications about that as well. So we would love to discuss it with you after the fact. I'm trying to remember. It's been a week. If you'd like to join our panels, you can go ahead and request that. You can also find out what our past picks have been, as well as when we release our new picks on the first of the month. And you can find that in our Facebook group, which I have left a link here. And if you like what we do, we also have a Patreon because we don't just do these monthly clubs. We have so many meetings and everything. And if you like what we do, you can support us. At this time, we don't actually have any extra things on our Patreon, so it would just be going to the live events that we do and just the things that we run for the group. But we are working on trying to get some of those perks up there, so that might be coming in the future. And once that happens, we'll talk all about it.
Yep, and we appreciate your support.
But for tonight, what we are going to be discussing is the movie Swiss Army Man, which I haven't in the past, and I'm trying to do a better job of actually stating what the movie is about. And for some reason, I have decided to start with this one, which is very hard to quantify and put into a little synopsis.
You really shot yourself in the foot there, Rebecca.
The short version of it is Swiss Army Man is about a man named Hank who is trying to commit suicide on a beach and is distracted when a dead body washes up on shore. But he quickly realizes that he can use the body to his advantage to escape said island and then to help him make it back to civilization. Along the way, realizing that the corpse can actually speak. And them getting into tons of fun shenanigans while trying to get back
to society.
Yeah, trying to get back to society. That is the surface level of it, but what do you guys think the deeper meaning is here?
Whoo boy. Yeah, right? Who wants to go first? Anyone?
I mean, I can go first. I know I know what I got from the movie, and I know kind of how but it's a little bit starting on the heavy side for this conversation. So maybe instead of talking about that first, I just want to know if you enjoyed it.
So I had a lot of thoughts about this movie when I finished it. And I was actually trying to pinpoint what is the deeper meaning of this movie. And I don't know if I came up with an answer, but I can't decide if I like it or not. Like, there are definitely enjoyable moments that I really appreciated, But the overall movie, I'm undecided still.
I love this flick. It is both the art design on like the recreation of like the bus going by, or like showing Jurassic Park through shadow puppets. That just the Daniels' knowledge of like film language had like it was both a rom-com between Hank and this dead body, essentially. Now, whether or not what the dead body actually represents, we can talk into that. But just the music swells, which again, the soundtrack. Do we want to talk about the amazing
We'll bring that up
soundtrack?
later, because I also have a lot of thoughts on the soundtrack. It is a weird thing.
But yeah, so the cinematography was just amazing. The audio, leading the swells, like you felt for these characters and their plights. Like you felt bad for Hank, despite the fact that he might have been the bad guy in this movie. I think he was the bad guy.
How about you, Derek? Had you seen this movie before?
Yeah, I rented it in 2016 apparently, so I didn't see it in the theater. But yeah, this was my first time rewatching it since Everything Everywhere All at Once came out. And so I was wondering, will I enjoy this movie as much? Because I think Everything Everywhere All at Once is like, I don't know, it's an incredible movie. So I was wondering if this one would just look bad by comparison, but I really enjoyed this one. I had remembered the general arc of it, but I had forgotten almost all of the details, like dressing up as the woman and like some of the abilities that Manny seems to have. And I found like the dialogue was really funny, and the cinematography is amazing for this budget of movie. And the Daniels did a lot with very little. Like just, I mean, the way the movie starts out, it seems to be like a Castaway type of movie where Hank is trapped on a beach. Of course, it ends up being kind of just someone's backyard in a way, but like, yeah, it's just I've kind of made short films that are all in like one location with minimal actors and minimal plot, and the difficulty is always like not being boring. I think that's kind of always the difficulty with movies, but it's compounded when you only have minimal locations and minimal stuff going on. But the Daniels really found a way to keep this one interesting, even though it's really just two actors, or you might even say 1.5 actors, because Manny is supposed to be dead. So yeah, in short, I really liked it. I would still put Everything Everywhere All at Once above this one, but yeah, I still like this one a lot. And I did enjoy it when I first watched it, but I think I actually liked it better this time when I watched it. So yeah.
I think the first time that I watched it, I was so just confused about what I was watching that this time watching it, I could like watch it and understand it a little bit better. Like the first time I watched it, it is a bonkers movie. But yeah, it feels like it could have been a short. And I am impressed that they were able to get it out. Like it's like a little bit over 90 minutes. It's a pretty short movie by today's standards, and it feels like it could have been a short, and it just got expanded and just kept expanding. They kept
Did this
finding
have a
more
wide-
and more fart jokes.
Yeah. Does this have a wide theatrical release?
I don't think so. I know that it was at a lot of festivals.
Yeah.
In fact, I had a list of a
Oh,
lot
there
of
you go.
their. I
enough.
wanted to know what their accolades were for it, but like you can see, it's like Sundance. This is actually their directorial debut for a feature. The
Right.
Daniels have done music videos primarily before this, and I know their music videos, and they are just as surreal and kind of have like they've always had the same vibe about them. But this is their first time making a feature length film, and so they got a lot of best first feature things from a lot of different independent award shows. Also, it had a budget of $3 million.
Yeah. Cheap. Low
And
budget.
for its box office, it got 5.8 million. So that says to me that it was probably a limited theatrical release.
Yeah.
I also can't imagine like seeing a large poster for it.
This is a very Sundance kind of movie.
But you got Daniel Radcliffe, and I'm guarantee that brought some people in. Just I'll see Harry Potter, see what he's up to.
I'm also not sure. Like I know Paul Dano from Little Miss Sunshine, but I was trying to figure out because I feel like I know him from things that came after this, and I didn't realize that it was him.
Yeah, I knew I
testament to shaving your face, just changing your whole look.
Yeah, absolutely. I recognized him right away, but I couldn't tell you from what.
Funny enough, we watched what was that Dumb Money recently, which he's stars in, and yeah, I forgot.
Yeah, I feel like I've seen him in various things, but I couldn't tell you which ones.
He has a lot of side character roles before this, and like a lot of big name things. But I think, yeah,
just the name sounds familiar too.
He was also the Riddler in the Batman.
Didn't see that.
Oh, okay. You don't really see his face so much because he's kind of, but I mean, you do. Anyway.
Yeah, I want to go back to talking about what this, because on the surface, this is a movie that is filled with fart jokes and the most ridiculous thing the Daniels can come up with. And I want to say, just for anybody out there, because I know that we all understand, this movie was made by Daniels, is how they just write it. So you'll just see it as written and directed by Daniels. It's literally on the screen. Daniel Kwan and Daniel
Scheinert.
I can't see it from here, so I would like have to go like look it up elsewhere. And they are a duo that has made things like this, and their most recent movie was Everything Everywhere All at Once, which won a ton of awards, and I also like Everything Everywhere All at Once more than this one. But this is a very impressive feature-length directorial debut for them.
They sure have a thing for butt humor.
They certainly do. Has anyone seen Interesting Ball? Has anyone seen Interesting Ball, which is a short they did?
I have, because Ryan showed it to me.
It's very good. If you liked this movie, you would love this short. It's a almost anthology of just like, so the Daniels even, have a tendency to take this fantastical thing and put it into the real world, right? Like, and then treat it as if it's normal. And then at the end, you're kind of reminded, oh wait, all this was weird. This was all very weird. And like, that's what this whole movie was. Just by the end, that you're able to suspend your disbelief that the dead body's coming back to life based on his love. And then you're brought back to reality, and turns out none of that was true. And or is it? Or is it? Because you don't know. Yeah, man. I love these guys' work. I look forward to their whatever they got going on next.
Yeah. To me, like, as for like a deeper meaning in this movie, I was mostly thinking while watching it that it's almost like a parody of the type of indie movie where a guy just has to gain confidence to talk to a woman. And I was trying to think of an example of this type of movie. The only specific example I could come up with was 500 Days of Summer, I guess, where, I mean, even that doesn't fit because, like, I don't know. It just seems like it is maybe a satire on the idea of a male protagonist sort of being wishy-washy or not confident at the beginning, and they just have to work up the courage to talk to a woman and win her over, and then they'll live happily ever after. In this movie, it's Paul Dano's character seems to think that way, but he's so self-absorbed that he projects his feelings and insecurities onto this dead body. And by the end of it, it seems like Hank is schizophrenic or something. So most of what Manny does seems like a hallucination, but the deeper meaning comes from like him, Hank, projecting his own feelings onto Manny, like the way that he initially says that Manny knew the woman Sarah and that it was Manny's phone that they found, but it turns out to be Hank's phone. It's kind of, in a way, like the satire of it is that it's saying that this type of male protagonist is self-absorbed and possibly crazy. And so, yeah, that's in a way what I took away. I guess also it made me think of the video game Braid. If any of you have ever played that, I think it's from 2007. But that game kind of, it's a puzzle game. It's like a 2D puzzle game that was very popular. It was made by one person and maybe one graphics person. But in that game, it kind of, the setup is kind of like the original Mario game where the male protagonist has to rescue the princess. And by the end of Braid, this kind of gets flipped on its head that the princess is trying to get away from the guy. So it kind of reminded me of that kind of thing. But unfortunately, I couldn't think of any other independent movies with like wishy-washy male protagonists, I guess.
I mean, anything John Cusack was in. I mean, that is his career, right? Is 16 Candles, Better Off Dead, you know, One Crazy Summer, yada yada yada. Yeah, that 100%. It is the Daniels played on all of those tropes, and you're 100% correct. It is, it is. Yeah, he learned the wrong lesson, and that's the message is kind of not good. But the way I interpreted it was that he saw her on a bus. I don't know if we're in spoiler territory or anything like that.
Oh, by the way, there will be spoilers.
There you go.
There's always spoilers.
Right. The way I interpreted it was he was always behind. So he saw her on a bus. He fell in love with her, but he was so self-conscious and he knew he could never be with her because, again, seems like she's married with a kid. To the point where he goes and lives in her backyard because he can't like grasp the idea. And so in the beginning, we're on a symbolic island where he's about to kill himself. So I think he was in the woods the entire time. And it was only when this body washed up that distracted him enough that he was able to like separate himself. And yeah, like you were saying, it was him. It's so weird, right? So it's him not liking his body, right? It's him being embarrassed and ashamed, right? He had the whole weird mother story. and like he's just incredibly uncomfortable, and through projecting onto this dead body, which I think was real. I think he found a dead body, and that was enough to like for that psychotic break, right? Manny is like just is representing all of his inaccuracies. Like, I'm a disgusting garbage person. I am trash. But maybe there's you can there are good things in the world, and like enjoying the bus ride, right? That love exists, and it's him learning to love himself through this dead body. And yeah.
Yeah,
But
and there was a bit of a romance there as well between him and Manny at certain
right.
points. Yeah, I don't know. This movie is hard to pin down. Definitely a strange journey. But I loved there were a bunch of like in the middle heartwarming moments where he's realizing that, or he's imagining that the dead body is coming back to life, and he's kind of teaching this fully formed adult about what it means to be human and exist in society, and in the process kind of learning about himself and maybe why his life wasn't the way he wanted it to be.
I pulled up the posters for it, and I feel like both of these point on what you guys were talking about, because I know that it's too small and you can't really see it, but one of them, the quote on it is, "You've never seen a movie like this. Yeah, we know you've heard that a million times, but this time it's true." But also this other one, the one that just says hilarious on the front of it, kind of is reminiscent to me of like 90s rom-coms. Like there were a lot of them that had covers that were kind of like this, where that had the film strip at the bottom, which is reminiscent of like the way that he made a paint or the picture so that he could pull it like it's a moving bus. But when I first saw it, I was like, this, I don't know, having all the pictures at the bottom strikes me as like a late 90s movie cover thing, and so it makes me feel like it's even more a satire. But it's never listed as a satire, so it's kind of it's deep in there, kind of like something else I want to talk about with this movie, which is it a musical? It's funny because last month we watched Portrait of a Lady on Fire, which only has diegetic sound in it, and this movie also kind of does. There's no soundtrack. It's the characters will begin singing something, and then that will loop, and then they'll sing something over it, and so by the end of it, and there are multiple times where you're just like, you'll cut and it's just like Daniel Radcliffe as a dead body going bum 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 bum.
Speaking of which, did you notice there was a line in there that I'm singing so that you don't think about it too much?
Yeah.
And whenever he would kind of like, so because again, if he stopped and thought about what he was actually doing, he'd lose his mind. So whenever the music swells is him not thinking about it too much. And I think that played a part, although I have questions about the bear scene.
Yeah.
Was the bear real?
I mean,
is it a musical? Is the bear real? These are the questions we are here to answer.
Could the dead body really jet ski using its fart power?
Probably not. I don't think so. Or maybe it could at the end. Or was that hit? So right. So Hank. So Manny dies again when he's confronted with like, oh no, I've scared this child. I need, because he got so comfortable out in the woods, right? Like bodily function. Like I'm okay with it. I'm more, he had his, he was no longer embarrassed about stuff. He'd accepted himself, and then he gets out, he meets the daughter, and he's ashamed again. And Manny goes back to sleep because So, did that actually happen, or is Hank doing something that everyone's just kind of like shocked at the end of the movie? I don't know.
He did
How
lean
far
over the
gone is he?
body and then just fart, which would be very confusing without any context. A
It's
lot of it
true.
would be. One of the things that I noticed is outside of the jet ski scene, and I guess there is in the sense of like when you die, you release everything in your body, sort of thing. But like a lot of the rest of the things that Manny does have like they're ridiculous, but they have like you can write off a reason. Like they specifically show him getting water dripped into his mouth before he becomes a water fountain. They have a thing where like his body stiffens before he's able to use it as, and like even when Daniel Radcliffe speaks, it kind of feels like a hand is moving the mouth. Like he's not actually speaking. He's always just kind of, he talks like this. So like outside of jet ski, like I feel like a lot of the things that they have the corpse do, like you could almost write off as having a real life reason. Like Ryan disagrees with me.
I don't know if I agree, especially with his compass, shall we say?
That's
I
actually
don't.
fair.
I don't know what the real world priapism, dead body, the rigor mortis. I don't know.
I don't know. I mean, there are moments where like the film is trying to justify some of the things that the dead body is capable of, like the water dripping into the mouth and then literally him being like a hose with water spraying out of his mouth to quench Hank's thirst. But at the same time, like that is not possible. that wouldn't happen.
The way I interpret it was that Manny became the thing he needed to reintegrate into society. So it wasn't necessarily he became a grappling hook. In real life, that was his lifeline back into society, right? He's learning that just basically to be okay with himself. And like, how can he, despite the fact that all the terrible things his body does, and the things you're not supposed to talk about. Because if you lie about farting, what else are you lying about?
To answer your question about the
Yes.
compass, that is a thing that can happen.
Yeah, no, I understand. I imagine it doesn't do what it did in the movie.
Yeah, and I imagine having rigor mortis also doesn't make it so that you can
You
turn
could
into a
karate
grappling
chop.
gun and karate chop some wood. Like it's all over the top, but there is like those are all things that like a dead body could possibly do that are. So I don't know. The jet ski feels out of place.
There's a little note here. His ringtone, the boodaloop, is also a variation on the lullaby he sings. Yeah, and that cute little. Yeah. Oh, hello.
Sorry, sometimes I change the slides.
Oh, Mary Elizabeth Winstead. I mean, how could you not fall in love with her on a bus? Come on.
It's funny because like we watched Scott Pilgrim like a while back.
Yeah,
That was the first time I ever saw her in anything, and like yeah, at 100%, I would also fall in love with her if I saw her on a bus. Like Mary Elizabeth Winstead.
To the point where you're gonna go live behind her house.
Look, I'm thinking about it now.
the moment I saw her in the film, I was like, wait a second, that's Ramona Flowers.
Now, Rebecca, weren't you telling me that Andy Hall was the composer?
Andy Hall is in fact the composer. He was on set for a lot of it because yeah, they sing the parts. Daniel Radcliffe at some point said that they were playing music constantly on like the set so that they knew and they were actually timing things to the music, but the music never made it into the movie a lot of the time. So yeah, it was weirdly choreographed, I guess.
Hank Thompson, Tom Hanks. Oh, I didn't get that.
But yeah, so Andy Hull was on set doing nothing. They put him in the movie as the cameraman at the end.
Can we? Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was done.
Oh, I thought Derek was going to say something.
Oh,
Not necessarily. I didn't. Well, I mean, at the end, there's also a cameo from Shane Carruth. I don't know if you know who that is. He's like an indie director. He's been canceled since this movie because he was abusive toward, I think it was his wife, Amy Seimetz. But yeah, he's a sort of, he made Primer and Upstream Color. I used to think of him as like an idol for me, but now since he was abusive, I don't like him anymore. But yeah, this movie was shot before he was canceled though. But I think he plays the coroner. Like he's at the end where there's like where the real people are discovering Manny or whatever, and I think they put him into an ambulance or something. I don't know.
yeah. I think there were probably a lot of cameos at the end there when they needed more people.
And boy, man, Primer. Talk about that's a rough movie to watch. It's good, but that's a rough one.
I've never seen it. Sorry, I was laughing at the one sentence pitch that the Daniels gave to Paul Dano to get him to be in the movie, or the reason why he wanted to be in the movie.
Yeah.
I
First
mean,
part makes you laugh. The last part makes you cry. Is it true?
yeah.
You know what
Yeah.
what stuck out to me about that scene was very I don't know. I feel like this is a bit of a guy movie. There are a lot of moments that I appreciate. Like I love the middle section where Hank is building like the forest set pieces of the bus and Disneyland and all that stuff so that they can go on dates together. And I thought that was adorable. I love that part. But then like at the end when they're all watching Hank kind of break down on the beach trying to save this dead body from being taken to the morgue. And then the body like jet skis off with its farts into the ocean. And all of the dudes on the beach are like, whoa, and just like transfixed. And then all the women are like, what?
The little girl Chrissy, though, she was having a blast at that part. She was all chuckles.
Yeah, I said women.
Oh, sorry. Apologies. Guys are immature. Can we talk about how amazing Daniel Radcliffe did in this film? Just the method, I think I read somewhere this he was supposed to, they were going to use the mannequin for most of it, but he insisted that he would be in the scene as much as possible.
Yeah.
And they had to go back later and remove VFX wise, take out his blinks and his breathing.
Yeah, that's where most of the VFX budget went to, was to make it so Daniel Radcliffe was dead because he wanted to be in the movie more than the dummy. Speaking of the dummy, do we want to talk about the fact that Daniel Radcliffe did all of the marketing for this movie with the said dummy? Anyways, here's photos.
There he is.
Oh my god, that's really funny. Also,
He's
a little
so proud
creepy.
of it.
I mean,
I love the photo of him just looking lovingly at this replica of his dead body.
how can you not, though? Again, the performance was so good from everyone. Everyone did great. I mean, there's the two, but just
Yeah, I found myself trying to figure out in the scenes which ones were actually him and which ones were the double. I mean, obviously they had to use the dummy for, like throwing down the rocks and things like that. They're not going to do that to Dan.
Yeah, when the arm falls backwards, yeah, that's probably not him.
But
so
if
much.
it wasn't, they made him use the dummy, then Daniel Radcliffe wanted to be the one operating the dummy. So when it does fall down the rocks, it's Daniel Radcliffe throwing the doll down the rocks.
Oh,
Let's go
yeah.
back to this one.
Oh, fine.
This is. I'm a little upset because this movie was suggested by Chris, who's one of the members of the Dragonfly Arts group, and he wasn't able to join the conversation on it. And I'm very, like, whenever somebody suggests something, I'm always like, why?
Yeah.
That being said, I love this movie. I think that, like, yeah, on the surface level, it is all fart jokes, and on the deeper level, it's all about loneliness and, like, kind of being yourself versus what society wants you to be, which is interestingly also what Portrait of a Lady on Fire was about. These movies have so much in common.
So much.
They
Just
also
limited
have
cast.
very beautifully colored beach scenes.
They also have hints, well, less
Yeah, that's
subtly,
true.
less subtly in Portrait of a Lady on Fire, to a gay love story.
Sorry, guys, I didn't realize I picked the same movie twice in a row.
Wow.
Yeah. I don't know yet still what I think about this movie.
Even after all of us talking about it for so long?
Had you seen it before, Rebecca?
I have seen this movie before. Yes.
So I went in like fresh. Like I did not know. I
I'm
heard
jealous.
your very quick pitch in the coffee shop, but that was all I knew about the film. And then so I had no idea what I was getting into. And so I kind of knew it was going to be a bit of a dark comedy with the setup with him being stranded and the notes on the various pieces of garbage, but I had no idea what was coming. So yeah, but I mean, despite that, I did enjoy most of it, but I don't know if I would say I enjoy the movie overall yet. I don't know. Come back to me in like 3 weeks. Maybe I have to watch it again, is what I'm hearing.
Yeah.
Let
well,
it
I don't know.
marinate.
I don't know how Ryan felt about it after seeing it a few times. But yeah, for me, I think the first time I saw it, it was just so out there and so different from anything I'd ever seen before that it was almost like I was in shock for the entire movie. And then the second time, I was better able to understand the movie. So
That's fair.
I do remember distinctly being like, wow, I didn't expect to get so emotional about a movie about Daniel Radcliffe's farts, but here we are.
It wasn't about the farts.
Well, and having seen Everything Everywhere All at Once, like I knew I was in for a ride, but yeah, it is not exactly what I expected.
Yeah, I kind of agree that like watching it twice lets you appreciate it more. I can't exactly remember my opinion the first time I watched it because that was back in 2016. I remember I enjoyed it, but I think this time, since I knew the basic twist at the end, and like I said, I knew the general arc of it, I was able to sort of appreciate the jokes more and the amazing cinematography and like the homemade sets that Paul Dano's character makes. And so yeah, I think watching it at least twice seems like a good idea.
Maybe give it a little bit of time in between the next one so that you like forget part of it. I did a little bit of research on Daniels because I was curious about what's next for them. They signed a first look TV deal with A24, but they also signed a 5-year film deal with Universal Pictures, and their next film is slated to be released on June 12th, 2026. In the meantime, they also directed an episode of Star Wars Skeleton Crew.
I bet that's a fun one.
I remember around the time that it would have been right after Swiss Army Man came out. People in the media were asking the Daniels what they were going to do next, and I remember them saying something like they wanted to make a horror remake of the movie White Chicks with the original cast. And so, yeah, that sounded interesting to me.
That
at the time.
sounds epic. I would watch that.
That sounds like the exact answer I would expect the Daniels to say.
Yeah, especially after this movie, since this was their big introduction to the world. I remember, well, I'm not. I think I remember after hearing about their White Chicks idea and after seeing Swiss Army Man, to me, it almost seemed like they would be destined for a career where they just basically sit in the corner and giggle at their own jokes, and that mainstream people wouldn't really appreciate them. But then Everything Everywhere All at Once just sort of blew that out of the water, and they swept the Oscars. It also, I wanted to point out just how historic their Oscars wins were, because Steven Spielberg had a movie out that year that was about his own childhood and about the magic of movies. Usually that type of movie would be what would sweep the Oscars, but instead it was this weird, like, sort of kung fu, multi-dimensional movie.
Right.
And yeah, so now I think, the sky's the limit for these guys. Like, they could do anything and possibly get mainstream success out of it again. Like, who knows?
They're definitely on the map now, and I'm really happy about that. I'm very excited. They definitely kind of punched a hole in the movie industry in a way.
I will say this movie surprised me in a couple of different ways. I thought I had it figured out when they made it back to civilization. And I thought that they were going to do like a Fight Club switcheroo, and Manny was never even there.
Right. Or, yeah, because he's like, Manny?
Yeah.
Let's have your interview now.
Yeah. But that wasn't it. So.
Apparently, Rebecca, that they also did an episode of Legion.
Yes, I saw that as well. Which, if you guys haven't seen Legion is a great show that these guys would do well directing in. But I think it was just one of the Daniels.
Yes, I think it's just Quan. I found this little clip. So I guess they didn't ask me anything for Swiss Army Man back in 2016, and I couldn't find that. I didn't look that hard. But I did find a post about other books that you would like if you like this movie. But more importantly, he says, and this is a little quote about talking about writing this script, was, "This movie is a result of me trying to exorcise two demons. The first was the fact that I had just gone from being a hardcore Christian to an atheist agnostic. The second was my unhealthy views on relationships and love, and how it affected my first long-term relationship." So that's this movie, is this look at what you be shamed of yourself, why, and then he then goes on to recommend Anything Vonnegut, Miranda July short story collection, specifically No One Belongs Here More Than You, Blankets by Craig Thompson, which, if you haven't read, is an amazing graphic novel. East of Eden, Steinbeck. Some by David Eagleman. And those are the books he recommends if you liked this movie. But I just thought the line about this was him coming to terms with, like, society and what he's grown up to learn, like, what to hate about himself and this is the result, or I say he
Well,
is.
and I can see that coming into an atheist worldview versus having been raised in a Christian tradition and dealing with what that means about death. Because,
Absolutely.
I've had that experience, and you're trained to think what happens after death. And the reality is no one knows. And so you're kind of faced with this this reality about death that is far more scary if you thought you had it figured out before. And I feel like this movie is a good exploration of death and what that means, and what kind of not happens afterwards, but like dealing with it and facing it head on. And I don't know if there's any like correlation, but like it had me thinking about that while I was watching this film on the anniversary of my, not realizing that, this was the theme that it was exploring. So it was an interesting watch on that particular day.
Well, I was going to say, which was going to lead me to, is the moral of the story a good one, right? Because it's him. He's on a bus and he takes a photo of a girl that he doesn't know, and then pines after her, right? That's some creepy stalker behavior. He goes, lives in the woods, and he learns to accept himself, and that's natural, but he doesn't come out the other end a better person per se, or does he?
He comes out the other end a more authentic person.
Is that good? Because it's like he's hiding, like, you don't bottle up all your emotions. Well, but at the same time, maybe don't do all the stuff you do in the woods in society, is all I'm saying. Just
there's also a thing where, you can't fully be sorry for something if you're not fully taking responsibility for what it is in the first place. And for me, I think that a lot of what was happening in the woods, specifically with Manny, was him coming to terms with what he did. Because it's not like he dressed Manny up. Hank was the one dressing up. Hank was the one putting himself quite literally in Mary Elizabeth Winstead's shoes. Or plastic bottles.
But he also didn't know anything about her, though. At least I don't think.
He rode the bus with her every day for he doesn't know anything about her. He's been making her up but also he's pretending to be somebody else. It's the first time I think he's coming to a realization with what he's been doing. And then he has to rectify it in his own head. And I feel like you almost don't get that final stage. Because there's also you talk about his dad as well, where he doesn't talk to his dad anymore, and his dad just sends him, he set it up so that his dad will send him an automatic message on his birthday every year. And there's this weird thing that I never quite figured out while we were watching this, of he finally gets the phone and has it, and he just has a single message from his dad that's the happy birthday. So therefore his dad's never noticed that he was missing in the first place. But then his dad is doesn't even want to look at the body, thinks that it's Hank, and is extremely upset by it. And is willing to go run through the woods to get him.
That could be interpreted in one of two ways, right? Either he's upset by the thought of seeing his son's dead body, or he just doesn't he can't be bothered, I
mean, for me, he was very clearly upset, but from Hank's point of view, if is it that Hank was the one that caused the divide in the first place? His dad was sad that he missed his birthday, so he set it up so that his dad would never miss him. But his dad did want that communication. Was he pushing him away?
I don't know, because it's hard to say, right? Because at the end he's like, "Don't, you're embarrassed." I think he said something like, "You're embarrassing me," or something like that on the beach. Now that said, he was trying to revive a dead body, so I can't say the dad's wrong. But he also had that whole bit about masturbation earlier, about like trying to dissuade Hugh. Like, I don't think he's a great parent, is what I'm saying.
No, which is why part of me, and I don't know, maybe I just need to watch it again, but part of me feels like, it's not, he doesn't care enough about his kid to, one, even remember when his birthday is, or for two, to want to confirm that he's actually dead and, on a table before him. He'd rather just walk away and not deal with it. That's how I read it anyway.
If this movie had ended at like if this movie ended at like the news report, right? It would have been about a guy coming to terms with who he is and reintegrating. So there was a shot when in the tree when Manny is projecting the thoughts back into Hank's head, right? He's having, and in it we catch a glimpse of, and I didn't read this anywhere, but it's a glimpse of Sarah, and then it's a casket, and then it's Manny and them on a bus, and then the bus explodes. So in my head it was like, oh, this is going to turn into they did have a relationship and she died and he couldn't cope and went out into the woods. Turns out that wasn't true at all. He didn't know her. No, it just, this movie could have ended 20 minutes early, 10 minutes early, or the way it did, and we get the confusing. He sails off into the wherever, sails off, and everyone being like, happy, confused. Some people are confused.
I mean, if I had seen that, I would have been confused and amused.
I don't know, amused. I think horrified. If you saw this in real life,
more like freaked out.
This would, if it didn't have the musical swell at the end, this would have been a horror movie of this dude's been living in your backyard with a dead body.
Oh yeah.
Just staring at a picture of you on his phone. Like, very easily been a horror movie. What was it? They the little fun fact is they didn't know if they wanted to shoot it like a survival, survival, a rom-com, or art film. So they were struggling between, should it be survival film, art film, or a rom-com? And this is what we got. A combination of the three. I like this movie a lot, actually. I don't know if you could tell.
So we are fast approaching an hour here. So I do want to, if anybody has anything else they want to add about the movie, give them a chance to speak their piece.
Just the cave scene is another one of my favorite scenes where Manny's learning to talk again for the first time. Yeah. Yeah, and I do love Daniel Radcliffe's delivery on this character because he very much plays dead, pretty well. There are moments where the character is more animated, but for the most part, he tries to move his jaw as little as possible. Just little things that, oh yeah, this is a dead guy.
I want to know who handed this script to Daniel Radcliffe, because this role is perfect for him. And we talked about how Paul Dano had to be convinced. Less convinced and more that he heard the pitch for it and was like, hell yeah. But I feel like Daniel Radcliffe would have just heard the start of the synopsis, or just somebody was like, we want you to play a dead body, and he'd be like, I'm in.
I think Daniel Radcliffe said, is my butt going to be in it? Because if it is, I'm down. Just got to show my butt cheeks.
Yeah, I agree. Daniel Radcliffe is amazing in this. I think he, especially during this time period when the movie came out 8 years ago now, he seemed to be in this frame of mind where he wanted to get away from Harry Potter as much as possible. And since he is rich, he's able to just do crazy movies and not worry about consequences on his career, really. And it's I really like it. Like, it's a very good instinct for an actor to have, to like take risks like this. But yeah, I think actually I can't even remember the last thing I saw him in. I know he was in a TV show, Miracle Workers. Oh yeah, and I also wanted to mention, it's been a long time since I've seen the movie Weekend at Bernie's, but I know that's another movie with a dead body. And that one, it's an actual dead body. It doesn't talk at all, as far as I remember, unless there's like a dream sequence or something. But I think a lot of comedic actors have said that playing a dead body is an underappreciated skill. And like the actor in Weekend at Bernie's, I've heard some comedians call it one of the best comic performances ever. So I think something like this is harder than it looks, playing a dead body, but also in this particular movie, he does sort of gain life as Hank tells him more and more about life, I guess. So yeah, all of that is to say, I also love Daniel Radcliffe in this movie.
Yeah. Also, oh, sorry, I just wanted to mention it.
Go for it.
Just real quick, I think it's a little bit funny that his co-star in this one also looks a little bit like Rupert Grint.
I had that exact same comment.
I was going to say, you could say Manny is his will to live, as he's reminding himself why life is worth living. And then Manny gave it back to him. Also in Weekend at Bernie's 2, he gets brought back by a voodoo curse and is able to walk around trying to find a secret buried treasure.
I never saw the sequel.
Okay. Yeah. First one's pretty straight laced. Second one gets real great. So, and apparently none of the directors had seen Weekend at Bernie's when they made this movie. So, yeah. Who knew?
Interesting.
Somebody made a list of the best of comments during the director's commentary, and one of those was they hadn't seen Working at Bernie's. Also, keep an eye out for the sequel, Swiss Army Man 2, Big Manny in Japanny. It's Manny washing up in Japan, making friends with Japanese schoolgirls and fighting giant monsters. So,
I'd watch it.
Look forward to that. Yeah.
Quick question for all of you. Shit, I forgot it. What was my question?
Sorry.
You came in so hot as well.
I know, it was on the tip of my tongue.
I will reiterate, go see Incredible Ball. If you like this movie, go watch Incredible Ball. It is one of the shorts is, I'm pretty sure, so it's the two directors. I forget how it happens, but he kicks his roommate in the butt, and he starts getting, he gets stuck.
I remembered my question.
Okay, go for it.
How long a time period do you think this movie takes place in?
In my head, this movie takes place over the course of like a week at most. We really only see like 2 nights. And it does not take anybody else very long to get from the beach to the backyard.
Right. Yeah, they just run straight there.
It takes them about 3 minutes. So
yeah,
I want to say a week maximum, but I feel like it's like 2 days.
Probably only because the rate of decomp would be so much faster, and that body would be real stanky if it were a week. So,
yeah,
It's probably true.
So probably more like a day or 2, realistically.
Long enough for him to get hungry. I'm trying to think which iPhone was it, and how long does that take to drain? Because
I don't think it was an iPhone.
Whichever phone it was, decent battery life, I guess, unless it wasn't. It's probably, let's see. was gonna say he didn't die from dehydration, but he was real thirsty. So
Yeah. I mean, you can get real thirsty real quick.
that's true. But I'd say about 2-3 days.
I'm putting a link to Interesting Ball on
Oh,
the comment section for this.
it's so good. There's a dude,
Uh,
dude mech where a bunch of beach goers.
Well, don't spoil it.
Also, we didn't talk about the OK Go music video.
Okay,
Oh.
good.
Did they do an OK Go?
Didn't they? You shared it with me.
So they did Foster the People. Is my
Foster the People.
favorite.
That's who I was thinking of. Yeah, Foster the People.
Yeah.
That is very in line
Started-
with this movie.
They started the Daniels started with music videos, and so there's like a lot of them but that one always sticks out in my mind because it was probably the first thing I ever saw that they directed. Foster the People's music video Houdini, which chronicles a Foster the People gets crushed by their lighting equipment in the opening sequence for it, and the entire music video is the rest of their production crew just trying to figure out how to not cancel a show after the entire band dies.
Yeah, it's a really good video. Very in line with the theme of this movie.
The shadow puppeteers are so good.
Yeah, definitely check out some of their other work, especially if you like this. If you haven't seen this movie, give it 2 goes.
Give it one go and see how you feel.
Give it 1 go. If you hate it, maybe don't. But if you're on the fence, maybe give it like a year and then give it another try and see if it hits a bit differently now that you're not so in shock. But yeah.
Well, if you've watched this discussion through to the end, then you won't be in shock quite as much.
Honestly, and you're only 30 minutes from just watching the movie yourself. So if you watch this whole thing, listen to 30.
Yeah, so thank you all for watching this movie with me. It was a weird one. I'm going to see if I can pick a more serious one for next time, but we'll discuss that then.
Sounds good.
Was the bear real? I don't know.
And we'll never know.
And we'll never know.
We need to see the teeth marks, I guess.
Right. I mean, it's hard to say.
He also fell on that leg, so that could have just been from the fall.
But then he ran like the next scene.
Was he ever even hurt? Anyways, I don't want to go on for an hour or over. So I'm going to stop the broadcast for tonight, but thank you all for joining me. And
thanks for watching out there.
I'll talk to you all later.
Bye.
Bye.